In the name of Allah, the Rahman and the Rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am Nasim Gul. Today we are studying History of English Literature. That is lecture number 2. The topic for discussion is novel in the 18th century, and contents in this topic are novel and novelists in the 18th century and the contribution of the age to the prose. First of all, I'll give you the outline of the lecture. We will study that what we have studied in previous lesson, introduction, and then novel in the novelists in the 18th century. Dear students, we have studied in our first lecture that what are the reasons for the rise of novel in the 18th century. Like we have discussed, social reasons are there and domestic reasons are there, like change in society is one of the reasons for the development for the rise of the novel in the 18th century. So today we will discuss the contribution of the 18th century to the writing of prose. Like we have studied that 18th century is the great period for prose writing, that bulk of prose was written in the 18th century. Like there was no great poetry written in 18th century because it is not a specific period for poetry. This period is considered particularly for the writing of novel. Okay, so the rise of novel is this period is famous for the rise of novel. According to Matthew Arnold, a very known critic, that he is saying that 18th century is the age of prose and poetry. Okay, is the age of prose and poetry. Likewise, poetry was there. We can't deny that no poetry was written, okay? But we can say that critics, they are saying that poetry which is written in 18th century is not up to the mark, okay? So like poetry is in prose form, like prose poems are there, a piece of writing. A prose poem, which is a piece of writing associated with poetry, but not actually in verse, okay? But not actually in prose form. Like prosaic poetry is there. Poetry is there, association with poetry is there, language is used which is associated with the language of poetry, but not particularly in verses, okay? So that's why this age is famous, 18th century is famous for the writing of prose. In prose, especially, a great work is available on the writing of novel. So much of the poetry of this age is in prose form, because prose was most associated to the men and women of the age. Like we have discussed that this age, like prose, the form of prose, the language which was used, which was taken from the common men, okay, common men language was used. Very simple language was used in the writing of the 18th century, in the writing of the prose. So this like language was very much associated, it was very much suited to the personality, to the characters of the 18th century, to the common men, to the common people. So this century represented particularly the ideas, the beliefs, like the views of the 18th century of the common men, okay? So it is better known for the galaxy of brilliant prose writers were there. A number of prose writers were they were available, they were busy in writing of prose. So this age is a remarkable age. This age is a proliferation of practice. It means that sudden increase was there in writing of prose. Proliferation means sudden increase in something, in the amount of something. So sudden increase in writing of the prose was there. People, many like scholars, many great writers, they were busy to write in prose. Particularly their focus was on the novel writing. It was a new kind of prose plant. Okay, the prose of this age was simple. These are the characteristics of the prose of the 18th century, that the prose of this age was simple and modern. Yes, one way this form of writing was suited to the common men. Okay, to the demand of the common men. Okay, it was their demand to write something for them, to make them delight, to give them pleasure, to laugh them, to make them laugh. Okay, to give them something for enjoyment. Okay, to give them something for time pass, for entertainment, to entertain them. Okay, to give them pleasure, to give them like something for laughing. So it was a simple language, it was their demand. So that's why, and it was also a kind of modernity was there, like new form, like novel was the new form of writing. So a kind of modernity was there in writing. So one way it was simple to be appropriate with the demand of the common men. So like this age was capable, the writers of this age, they were capable of depicting the true picture of the society. Okay, to record all the occasions, okay, all the events, all the activities of that age in a true sense. Okay, they were able. So it was very this age was very strange. This age is very strange because prose was becoming simpler and more easily comprehensible. But on the other hand, like this something very strange regarding the 18th century, that the prose was becoming simpler and more easily comprehensible. But on the other hand, the language of poetry was being conventionalized into the artificial poetic diction. Yes, poetic diction was like in this age, poetic diction was developed. Okay, like choice diction means choice of words for the writing of poetry. Now, contribution of the age to prose. For the first time in history of English literature in 18th century, we meet with the number of great prose writers. Like before this age, no great writers of prose were available. Okay, but with the coming of this age, with the opening of the 18th century, we have a number of great writers of prose. A really huge mass of pamphlets, journals, booklets, and magazines were published in the 18th century. The whole activity of life of the 18th century was embodied in the works of literary critics, economists, letter writers, essayists, politicians, public speakers, divines, philosophers, historians, scientists, biographers, and public projectors. They were busy, they all were busy to record the daily life activities. Okay, so they were busy, like all kinds of people, they were writing, they were busy in writing, to write in prose. So prose was suited to them, to their temperament. Okay, it was suited to their temperament to write in prose, because their inclinations were not towards poetry, towards prose writing, towards verse writing, but their inclinations, they were more capable of writing of prose. Okay, so this is the contribution of the 18th century, that a number of writers, they were writing different kinds of these I have mentioned. They were writing like different types of writing was there. The contribution of the 18th century to prose. Okay, two new genres like we have studied in our first lecture that two new genres, periodical essays and novel, were introduced in this age. Like in 18th century, new genres, new types of writing, genre means type, okay, types of writings were introduced with the coming of the 18th century, okay. Like the first one was periodical essay. But remember students that periodical essays, they were like born in the 18th century with the opening of the 18th century, but they were also closed, they were also died with the closing of the 18th century. So now there is no concept, like no great periodical essays are available now this activity is not going on, okay. It was stopped with the closing of the 18th century. But remember, novel was introduced in the 18th century, and it still enjoys the status, okay. Like different types of novels are now we are writers, they are writing different types of novels, like many sub-genres in the genre of novel are now available, okay. In 21st century, writers are there, novelists are there, different, like from different perspectives they are writing novel. So novel writing is going on, it's in progress, okay. These were the two gifts of the 18th century given to English prose, like periodical essays and writing of novel. These are the two gifts, okay, given by the 18th century to English prose through prose writing. The best prose work is particularly found in the 18th century. In the 18th century, novel and periodical essay, according to critics, that 18th century by itself had created English novel and practically created literary history. Like in the history of English literature, for the first time in the 18th century, novel writing was created. So space was available, but no one attempted, no one practiced before 18th century to write a novel. So no concept was there of the writing of novel before the 18th century. We have many genres before 18th century, like dramas are there written by Shakespeare, okay. Great writers are there, great poetry, poetry is there, okay. But no great novel, or the concept of novel was not available. But with the 18th century, this age put essays in journal circulation for reading purpose, like essays and novel writings. It was placed by that period, by the 18th century, for the reading purpose. So now people, they were busy in novel writing, as well as other people, common men, other common people, they were busy in reading. So writing was there and reading was there. So for the from the novelists, it was the demand of the people that they should write for them, okay, make them happy, to give them something for enjoyment. So now novels and novelists in the 18th century, we have first great novelist Daniel Defoe. He was born in 1660 and he was died in 1731, okay. He was an English writer. First, remember students, for your exams purpose, for objective questions, that he was Englishman, he was an English writer, and he is also considered first writer of novel. First writer of novel is known as Daniel Defoe. For most of his life, he worked as political journalist, and he did not begin his writing of novel until he was nearly 16. Like in mature age, he wrote novels. Like in the age of maturity, at the age of 60, when he became 60 years old, then he started like to write novel. Okay, like he got experience from many fields, like he was a political journalist, okay, was a politician, was a journalist. So the same concept is brought by him, is attached by him to the writing of novel. The reflection of his political journey, journalist like field, was is reflected in his writing, okay, in his writing of novel. In Robinson Crusoe, this is first novel written by Daniel Defoe. He realistically depicted his character, like this is the true representation of the society, of the character, that what was going on, what was there, that situation of the time, like he recorded in true sense, okay, in Robinson Crusoe. This is his first novel, faithful picture of human life and character, which is the criterion for the real novel. Like criterion for the real novel, he propounded criteria for the real novel, for the realistic novel, okay, like he realistically depicted the true picture of the life, the true picture of his character. Through his character, he gives us like he has given information about the 18th century, about that very time in which he lived, okay. His other works like Moll Flanders and Ruxina are not as real as Robinson Crusoe. Yes, when we are making comparison among them, like the other, like the first one is more realistic, and the others works written by him are not as real as Robinson Crusoe. So dear students, we have studied that the contribution of the 18th century to English prose writing, and a great novelist, Daniel Defoe, that he is considered the first novelist, and he has written a realistic novel, which is Robinson Crusoe. In other works written by him or done by him are not as real as Robinson Crusoe. If you have any question, you can ask me, you can like comment. Please keep watching and be careful. Thank you for watching and for listening. Assalamu alaikum.